Bona tarda. Good afternoon, participants and online attendees. I'm Mercè Claramunt, Chair of the Scientific Committee of the Observatory of European Complementary Social Pension Plans. On behalf of the Observatory, welcome to the first European seminar on private pensions. This is the start of this seminar, in which a speaker from 7 European countries will present the main feature of complementary pension systems in their country, as well as the latest research on the subject. Specifically, we have representatives from Portugal, Onofre Simoes and Abraham Pacheco, Spain, Inmaculada Domínguez and Enrique de Besa, Italy, Elsa Fornero and Ana Maria Olivieri, France, Najat El Mekkaoui and Stéphane Loisel, Belgium, Pierre Devolder and Jennifer Alonso, UK, Carmen Boado and Catherine Donnelly, and Poland, Filip Cibalski. Thank you for accepting the invitation of the Observatory. I am convinced that the first European seminar on private pensions will be very interesting and profitable for all of us. I give way to Uriol Roch, chair of the first session.
Thank you, Mercè. So in this first session, we have 3 invited speakers from France, Belgium, and Portugal, who will introduce us on the basics of their pension systems. So we'll open with Najat El Mekkaoui. She's an economist at the University of Paris Dauphine. She has studied social security programs all around the world, especially in North Africa and the Eastern Europe, Asian region. And she's a representative of France, right? So we can welcome her with the first talk on the France pension system.
Thank you.
Thank you, Najat.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And I would like to thank very much Mercè for her invitation, and thank you also, Uriol, for this invitation. And I'm very happy to be here. So I start now. Oops. Okay. Good. So I'm going to talk about the French pension system. So I would like to start with some numbers that you all know very well. So the first number is about the population age 65 and plus. So we could see on the left side the very huge increase about population in France, age 65 and plus. So we have this trend in almost all OECD countries, and this population has risen by almost 5 points in 20 years, and we could expect to have in the following year a very quite huge increase. So this increase is mainly due to the life improvement of the life expectancy, and this is very good information that people are living longer, but the main point is if people are living longer in good health, so this is another issue. So what we have observed in France, like in many European countries, the aging of the population has accelerated since 2011 with the very large generation of the baby boomer, and all OECD countries will experience in this following year a very high increase about the dependency ratio, as you can see in the graph on the right side. So many countries in Europe, but mainly in OECD countries, they have implemented different pension reforms and to try to maintain their system sustainable. It's what we did in France, and we have implemented many pension reform, and I will talk a little bit about it in a few minutes. So the situation in France. So what's the situation that we have in France? So until a few months ago, our system, our pension system, mainly based on its pay-as-you-go system. We have quite low funded schemes, and I will also explain in a few minutes. So a few months ago, we had quite a sustainable pension system. And I think you all know the situation that we have today in the country. So the government implemented a new pension reform because the last evaluation about the pension system, the public pension system, we saw that this system could fall, because it's linked to many hypotheses, could fall into a deficit from 2023. And the different evaluation that we have in France show that the deficit could reach 13.5 billion by 2030, and the deficit will be between 0.3 and 0.4% of GDP until 2032. And these numbers are coming from the evaluation that the Pension Advisory Council, the Conseil d'orientation des retraites, did for France. So we have this situation, so very high deficit. So we will see that how we reach this situation, and also how we could maybe avoid this situation. So in France, we have, as I said, the pension system is a pay-as-you-go system. So we have quite low level of private pension plan, very low level of funded schemes. And as you can see in this map, coming from the last OECD report, so you can see France. So the color is very clear. So this means that we have a very low level of funded and private pension plan. So it's estimated about 12% of GDP in France, compared to 100% of GDP on average in the OECD countries. So I will give you an overview of the French pension system, and then I will focus my talk on the supplementary pension schemes as Merce requested. And then I will finish with the pension saving plan. So we have different schemes in France. So we have different schemes according to the occupation, or according to some sectors or some companies. So we have 42 pension schemes, and this made quite difficult for us to give you a single pictures. Okay, so we have each system has its own rules, and so we will see also these different regimes, how they run. So it's mainly a pay-as-you-go system, so as you know, financed by contribution from employees and from workers. And we have the biggest scheme is what we call Régime Général. It's the scheme for the private sector employees, and it's the largest one that we have in France. And all workers are affiliated according to their profession at the same time to a basic and a compulsory supplementary pension schemes. So we have in France, like in many OECD countries, first pillar, second pillar, and third pillar. The first pillar is the basic pension. The second pillar is the occupational or supplementary pension. And the last pillar is sur-complementary pension. okay? And it's mainly organized by companies or in individual way, okay? So all the workers have received a pension from the first pillar and the second pillar, all workers, because it's compulsory. The first pillar work on pay-as-you-go basis, and the second pillar work also on the pay-as-you-go basis. The last pillar is funded or is mainly managed by insurance companies, so it's mainly a kind of saving contract or saving insurance contract for to get an additional pension. Okay, so first and the second pillar compulsory and are run on pay-as-you-go basis. So until now is okay. But we have also different schemes called special schemes, and these special schemes depend on the professional sector and occupational status. So this means that I am working in France, I am civil servant, but maybe I had also work, I had also some contribution when I was young. I worked for the private sector, so I will get also some right from the private sector. Then I will get the right from the pension system for the civil servant. And maybe tomorrow I can change also my occupational and move to auto-entrepreneur. And then I will move to another scheme. So this means that we have what we call multi-pensioners in France. So you can have part of your pension coming from public sector, coming from private sector, or coming from these self-employed schemes. You can have 5, 6, 7. You can have many parts of your pension coming from different schemes. Okay?
And Najat, you may also contribute simultaneously to self.
Yeah, of course. And of course, this, but I chose the simplest way.
Yeah.
But you can, of course, I can, for example, as a civil servant, or you are working in the private sector, you can also have at the same time a contract, independent contract, for example, okay? And then you can contribute at the same time at the different schemes. And then you will have part of your pension coming from these different schemes, okay? So, public schemes for civil servants, public schemes for workers in private sectors, or public schemes for self-employed. All these schemes have to offer pension from the first pillar and pension from the second pillar. But for the self-employed, for example, or for civil servant, we have what we call integrated system. Means that we do not have really a separation between the first and the second pillar. Okay. So if I have to make a group of these different schemes, I will say that we can say that we have 3 families. The first family is the regime or the schemes for private sector workers. The second family is the regime or the schemes for self-employed. And the third family is for the special schemes organized for different occupation or companies. And of course, you can have all these families, okay? Only 1, 2, or all of them, okay? Let me know if it's not clear.
The public sector?
You mean the public sector or the civil servant? Because we have company. Okay, civil servant. You will see. We have the last. It's the last one.
Okay.
The special
It's
schemes.
one of the special
Yeah.
schemes, okay.
Yeah, because we have also public institutions who do not belong to this scheme. So we have almost 17 million pensioners under the basic schemes. Okay, we have, so this means that they receive a pension from the first pillar. Okay, basic schemes is the first pillar. We have 12 million pensioners that they receive a supplementary pension. Again, the first and the second regime are compulsory. All of us, if we are all working in France, we will receive this pension from the first and the second pillar. No choice, okay? Because it's compulsory. And then we have 4.5 million pensioners under these special schemes. And again, in these special schemes, it's integrated schemes, so we will receive basic and complementary pension. Okay? It's clear? So let's see now how these French special schemes run. I'm not going to mention all the special schemes that we have, but I will mention only the biggest one. Okay, so we have one of the main special scheme is the scheme for civil servant and military personnel. So it's all the employees who are covered by the civil and military retirement pension code. So I, as a civil servant, I belong to this scheme. So then we have the National Railway Company, the SNCF. I think you all heard about this scheme. And then we have the RATP scheme. It's also railway schemes. And we have also one of the biggest special scheme is electricity and gas industry schemes. And so when we have to implement pension reform and the state would like to change some rules, it's about these French special schemes. We did it in the past, and we are also have implemented some change in these schemes with this new reform that was implemented a few weeks ago. Okay. So these schemes represent 4.5 million pensioners. So it's around 26% of French pensioners. And you can see in this table that there is a very big gap between contributors and pensioners. And it gives you an idea about the sustainability of this scheme. So you can see that for some special schemes, we have more pensioners than contributors. So it's the case, for example, for the civil and military servant. So we have more pensioners than contributors. So, and in some schemes, we have a very quite low number of contributors and a very large number of pensioners. So you could see also that for some schemes, we have very few contributors and very few pensioners. So these schemes are going to end very soon, to terminate very soon. And then workers in this sector or in this occupation will join the régime général, okay, the main basic schemes. So in the public pension system, so we have two main parameters. So often we hear about pension age, So the statutory pension age, âge de la retraite, is like many countries, is the age at which the employee can draw a pension, but we have also to consider the full rate pension age. Is the age at which the employee can draw full pension by taking into account the contribution that he or she made during their career. And if we don't have this number of contribution, we will have penalties. And if we have more, we can, and it means that if you are working more, you can have a surplus, a benefit. So it's not only about the retirement age, it's also about the duration of your contribution. And what we have implemented on one of the last reform, we have implemented also an increase of this duration or increase of the contribution period by taking into account the generation. Means more young you are, more year you will have to contribute. Then you have to take into account this contribution period and the minimum, the minimum retirement age. It's not only about the age, it's also about how many years you contributed for your scheme. So to give you an idea, and this formula that you have in front of you take into account the last pension reform. So the rules to calculate the pension, of course, will differ from one scheme to another, but it's almost the same way to evaluate the pension. So we have to take into account a reference wage, and this reference wage is the average wage over the 25 best wages. And a few years ago it was 10, and we moved to 25. If I remember well, it was during the pension reform in, I think it was 1993. So this is for workers in the private sectors. For the public sector, for the civil servant, we take into account the last 6 months wage. So we take this wage, and then we take, so it's P, the pension, equal this reference wage, times mean 1 and D on T. So this is what we call the coefficient of proratization. D is the contribution period, and this is the number of years we have to validate, and T is the reference length. So this means that if D is less than T, we will have a reduction in our pension. So when we talk again about the minimum age, it's more this kind of parameter that we have to take into account. Okay? So, for example, for people born in 1959, so 62 in 2021, T must be equal to 41.75 years. And this value is going to increase with the youngest generation. People born in 1973 or after must contribute 43 years. So because this is quite very important, because often we hear, oh, French, you are working until 60 years old, and we have everywhere we saw that retirement age, it's not 60, but it's 63, 65, sometimes it's 67, and you don't want to work more than 60. But it's not only, for me, it's not the main parameter. The main parameter is the duration and this coefficient of proratization. And there is also another main parameter is the way of indexation, how we link the pension, if it's linked to wages or if it's linked to inflation. And these are the main parameters. The life expectancy also. Again, it's not only about age. So, and then the last character is T, and T is the pension rate, and the standard rate is 50%. Okay? So what we did this last decade. So in 1983, retirement age was at 65. We moved from 65 to 60 in 1983. Then 2010, we changed, and we have increased the minimum pension age from 60 to 62. And the age of the full rate pension moved from 65 to 67. This means that if you do not have enough contribution and you are not going to have a full pension, means that you have to work until 67. So again, what we hear about this minimum age at 60 is very restrictive way of seeing, how the system runs. So the last reform, so we had more reform. I only put these 3 reforms because it's to show you how we changed the minimum retirement age. So 2023, so now we had also this gradual increase of the legal retirement age from 62 to 64 by 2030. It means that 43 years of work to get a full pension at 64. If you don't have this full pension, you have to continue until 67. Okay? Taxation. So we have taxation, it's on pension benefit. So pensioners, they have to pay different tax, and we have the general social contribution, and it's equal to 8.3%. We have the contribution for the social debt, and we have introduced also a new tax called the Solidarity Contribution for Autonomy. So pensioners, they have also to pay taxes. And of course, we have different exemptions for pensioners with quite low income. So taxation is at the end, is exempt tax. If you consider the legislation on taxation for pension schemes, it's EET. Let's talk about, okay, do you have any question? Yes, please.
For corporations, contributions are deductible.
Yeah. And for the supplementary pension schemes, so we have many supplementary schemes. So, and I have selected these 3 regimes. So we have the public supplementary retirement for civil servant called RAFP. We have a supplementary pension scheme for private sector employees called AGIRC-ARCO, and we have a supplementary pension scheme for self-employed called CNAF-PL. And under CNAF-PL, we have more than 10 schemes. Yeah. So, when I did my presentation, I say, okay, I have to select. So I have selected this one because they are also the main supplementary schemes. And all of them are mandatory. Okay. Let's start with the CNAV-PL. CNAV-PL is Caisse nationale d'assurance vieillesse, profession libérale, okay, self-employed, okay? And so all the data that you will see are coming from the CNAV report and also from Cour des Comptes. So, to give you an idea, CNAV-PL is a federation, and this federation manages the basic first pillar and the supplementary second pillar pension scheme for self-employed. Okay, it's integrated scheme. Okay, so one scheme for each group of occupation. We have one scheme for dentists, we have one scheme for doctors, we have one scheme for nurses, one scheme for insurance agent, one scheme for ministerial officer, one scheme for pharmacist, architect, technician, and so on. Okay? One specific schemes by occupation. Okay? And all these schemes are managed completely independently. All of them. Okay, and CNAV-PL is the federation, is on the top, and then you have all these schemes. Okay, self-employed. So we have different sections, and each section of the CNAV-PL manages its supplementary scheme independently, following the board of directors rules, and its mainly rules are about prudential way to manage their assets. And we had a very huge influx of contributors from 2005 and 2020, and it was more than 100% of new contributors. So new affiliation and in these self-employed schemes, and it was mainly due to this new contract about auto-entrepreneur. So, and it was a boom. Yeah. So this means that it gives you an idea about also the sustainability of this scheme. So because of these new contributors that they had during this last decade, so they had a demographic bonus. Yes, please.
Are these schemes funded, partially funded?
No.
Or are they pay as you go as well?
Pay as you go. Pay as you go. And they are running in point basis. Pay as you go and point system. Okay? Okay. So they manage almost 30 billion. So they have these provisions, 30 billion. Active contributor is more than 900,000 contributor, and they have more than 380,000 pensioners. So it's very huge. So let's see now the public supplementary retirement for civil servant is régime additionnel de la fonction publique, RAFP. The one that I have, the one that Stefan have also, and it's also mandatory. The best one. It's the best one.
Let's see.
We also built mortality tables.
So every month, we have to put 5% of our treatment, because it's not salary, in this account. And also, state put also 5%. Let's see. So this is also a compulsory. All the schemes that I show you until now are compulsory, okay? no choice. We have to contribute. Okay? Again, the first pillar and the second pillar. This one is also supplementary because, remember, as a civil servant, we have this pension integrated, first, second pillar. Okay? We have this supplementary retirement scheme, and this one is only for civil servant, and it was introduced in 2005. It was with the Réforme Fillon in 2003. The time when we made a different change during this pension reform in 2003, and it's at this time also when we have also introduced this new saving plan, retirement savings plan, and it will be the last part of my presentation. So, under this supplementary retirement for civil servant, we have two schemes. The first one is the state pension service for public servant, called SRE, the one that I contribute, and Stefan also. And then we have another scheme called CNRACL. It's the National Pension Schemes for Local Government Employees and for territorial or for hospital officials. Okay? So we contribute 5% of our treatment, and employer administration also contribute 5% in this scheme. And these schemes are based on point and on funded basis. Okay? And you say this is the best one. Who say this is the best one? Why?
No, because normally civil servants are in general excellent pensions, no?
Yeah, in general. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
perhaps France is an exception.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. No, it's good pension. Stefan, it's a good one? Don't want to say because, yeah.
Is it registered?
He wants more. He wants more.
Yeah.
It's online.
No, it's it could seem very difficult because we have all these diversities, but for civil servant it's a good way to have this possibility to have also this kind of supplementary schemes.
And before this year, what happened? Before 25?
Before 25, we had the possibility to contribute to also a supplementary scheme, but it was not compulsory, and it was not with the contribution from the administration. It was only on individual basis. But we had this possibility, and we still have this possibility. This one, it's compulsory again, and we have to contribute, but also the administration contribute also for us. So this is good.
Are the points compared with contributions? Is that sustainable? Is there a trial sustainable?
Yeah, so how it runs. So you will receive some points linked to your wages, and then you have a value. It's like the second pillar. The second pillar for private workers, private sector, workers in private sector, it's also running in point basis. So we contribute, and our contribution will give you a number of points, and then this number of points, we have a value of points. This value of point is negotiated by union by, this it's in the second pillar, yes, it's paritarian, negotiation, union, and also union for employees and also from employers. And then we have a value of point, and then it gives you the value of your supplementary pension. It's the number of points times the value of the point, and it gives you the amount of your complementary pension.
Are actuarial studies taken into account into these negotiations, or are they just negotiations?
It's negotiation.
Okay.
It's negotiation. And then we can discuss also about if how this point is indexed, or if it's indexed on price or not, and negotiation. Okay, so 2021, almost 42 billion assets, 4.5 million of contributor, and almost 2 billion in contribution collected. And this is the last data from this scheme. And you have all this number. You go to the website. You have very nice site for the RAFP, and you have all this number. You have all the report. What about this one? This is compulsory complementary pension for private sector's employees, called AGIRC-ARCO. So we saw the complementary pension for self-employed. Remember, with the CNAF-PL, we saw the complementary pension for civil servant, and now the largest one for private sector employees, AGIRC-ARCO. Any idea if it's running well or not? This is for private sector's employees. Second pillar, compulsory. Okay? No idea? No? Pierre? No? Neutre. It's one of the best. I show you. So it was implemented in 1961, and before 2019, we had two schemes in this pillar, okay? So in these occupational pension schemes, before 2019, we had a schemes for blue collar and a scheme for white collar. And since 2019, we decided to merge these two schemes. So now we have only one scheme. No distinction between the blue and the white collar. So the fund is now one fund. We have only one fund. And who manage this AGIRC-ARCO? The social partner for employees and companies manage this second pillar for sectors, private sectors, employees. It's running also in point basis, okay? So you are workers in private sectors, like what we have seen for the self-employed. You contribute, you are working, you contribute every month, so you will get some points also, and then when you retire, you will get supplementary occupational pension, and then it will be calculated by also considering the value of the point decided by the social partners, employees, and companies. Okay? And then this accumulated number of points will be converted into a pension benefit. I need to give you an idea. The pension point value now is €1.3498. Okay? And then you know exactly how many points you have accumulated, and you calculate, okay, today, you can calculate, because we all have this information quite easily, so you can give you an idea about the amount of your pension from this pillar. This scheme, AGER-ARCO, is quite well managed. And this scheme have a reserve, and the reserve must represent 6 months of benefit. So, this scheme now, at the end of 2022, and it's the last also number, have 68 billion euro in reserve, and with no debt. 26 million people contribute. We have 13 million pensioners who benefit from this compulsory supplementary scheme. The total annual amount of benefit paid by this scheme is 90 billion, and the assets are invested mainly in the Eurozone. 70% in fixed income and 30% in equities. And this is managed by union and employers, and with quite a good result. And is the scheme that has accumulated the most fund over these years. Okay. Do you have any question?
How are the projections of this fund? Because you have said that there is no debt.
No debt, yeah.
But if the value of the point is very high, eventually there will be any debt, or what kind of projections?
No.
We have here?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. The value of the point value is €1.30, almost 35 cents. Okay. This is the value for today. This fund have this reserve, and is quite well managed with the.
Only for 6 months, and we know that it will have any kind
Yeah.
of 6 months is almost.
Yeah. I agree with you, but they have this. Oops.
I mean, if we discount benefits
Yeah.
on the current basis,
Yeah.
under that 1.3 or whatever for points, and then we discount contributions at the current rate, is there a deficit, a surplus?
It's a surplus. Yeah, still a surplus. We have in these schemes again. It's invested. Their assets are invested, so they get quite a good performance, and this it's also a way to to get more to increase your assets. We have this reserve and yeah, 68 billion in reserve with no debt that they can invest in the capital market with quite.
More pressure to try to negotiate and to increase the value of the point.
This it's yeah.
But
It's
the
what the negotiation. Yeah, it's yeah. Sorry.
But the system is in pay as you go, nevertheless.
Yeah. The system is in pay as you go. Pay as you go with
So
reserve.
It's just a reserve.
It's a reserve, yeah. Exactly.
It's a small reserve.
Yeah, but it's more reserve, but it's more reserve with quite a good also management, because they can get quite a good again return, and it's of course this is the main point, is a pay-as-you-go basis.
Yeah, but this is more research. As soon as something happens,
Yeah.
it will go to negative very quickly.
And what is the number of beneficiaries and contributors? Do you know?
Yeah.
2.1.
Yeah. It's okay.
And it's possible if you are civil servant or you are private pension, you receive different pension.
If-
Possible.
yeah.
You're saying, you pay the same, you have the same contribution.
Yeah, give you an example. I still have time? Not much. I give you an example. As a civil servant, I will get a pension from my scheme, okay? And when I was student, I worked for a private company during my summer, and then, yeah, I will get also some, yeah, it will be a small one, okay? Small amount. But exactly, I have different points coming from this scheme, this compulsory scheme, and I will also receive a very small also part amount in my pension coming from also the first pillar. Yes, of course, you can have again different. Your pension will. The total pension that you will receive will come from, if you don't have, if you work in different areas in private sector and then you was self-employed and then you move to civil servant job, then you will receive different pension, of course, yeah.
Let me ask
Yeah, please.
an additional question. Are there any estimates concerning something like rate of return in this scheme, internal rate of return?
Yeah.
No, because
Yeah,
it works, okay,
I understand.
There's a surplus, so my question is, what is the rate of return?
I completely understand. Yeah.
Do people
Yeah.
take any benefits from it?
Yeah, and to have a sustainable system. I understand, yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that the reserve is a surplus. The reserve is a fact.
Yeah.
Then we would, at certain rate of return
Yeah,
for that reserve and future contributions, there is an equilibrium between contributions and benefits at that point conversion.
yeah.
Of
Then
course, however,
at certain rate.
maybe this rate
Is
is negative.
is that rate negative, and then you can say there is a surplus?
Yeah.
Or is that rate 13%, which is unsustainable?
And this positive debt cannot be shared with other schemes with a negative debt. It's not.
But there is no debt.
It's a pay-as-you-go system.
Again, no debt. We have this kind, okay, this occupational, this second supplementary pension schemes, okay, in the second pillar, is pay-as-you-go system. It's working on pay-as-you-go basis, but maybe it could be a little bit difficult to understand, but this pay-as-you-go second pillar schemes is with reserve. And you have many schemes in OECD countries with reserve, but most of the time is we have different countries with reserve in the first pillar. We don't have the reserve in the first pillar. We have the reserve in this second pillar.
One
Okay.
can say that current financing is based on pay-as-you-go rule,
Yeah.
and reserve is based on funding.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah, we have to move. Okay. I have to stop? Or I can very quickly give some... okay. But again, this schemes is very good. Okay. So, very quickly, this now is about pension savings plans. Okay? Very quickly. Okay. That's it. Okay, very quickly. We have different possibility also to to save for our retirement. So means that you can have a contract. It could be an insurance contract that you will have from. It's your choice. Only you contribute, and it gives you the possibility to get an extra capital or an annuities. It depends on the kind of insurance contract. Okay, so very quickly, this kind of individual contract was called PERP, Plan d'épargne retraite populaire. Okay, popular retirement scheme. And we had also the possibility to, as worker in private sectors, you had also the possibility to contribute in the occupational schemes. But this is completely facultative. It was facultative. Okay, the company could open these schemes or not. And if the company opens these schemes, the company gives you the possibility as workers to contribute to these company schemes. Okay? This it was before 2019. 2019 we had a reform, and we have implemented what we called the Loi Pacte, the Pacte Act. The Pacte Act is different modification in all these retirement savings plan. It's not only about this. The Loi Pacte is action plan for business growth and transformation. So, and under this Loi Pacte, all these different savings, individual or collective schemes that we had was changed. So we have introduced two individual and collective plan d'épargne retraite. So we have one individual plan d'épargne retraite, and we have also collective plan, two collective plan, one mandatory and one facultative. Okay, very quickly. So there are defined benefit or defined contributed schemes with quite a good tax policy, tax benefit for employers and for employees. And we have, only to give you an idea about the diversity, also about these different individual or collective schemes. Some of them are compulsory, some of them are facultative. And so now with this new act that we have introduced in 2019, one of the main change is all these different contracts that you can have in individual way or that you can get from your company will be regrouped in the same schemes. So it will give a better view also about our contribution, and also about also the kind of return that we can get from these different schemes. So no time to explain you all these schemes, but yes, maybe this one, because yeah, very fast, because we always we think that we don't have these individual or collective schemes. And now I am talking about the last pillar, you know, the complementary pension that you can have or in individual way, or you can have if your company gives you the possibility to save for your retirement. So at the end of 2020, it was 277 billion managed under this individual or collective retirement complementary schemes. Thank you. Thank you.
So Thank you very much, Najat. 42 different pension schemes sounds crazy to me. I don't know. Let me notice you that we don't have a room microphone, so any question you have, I will repeat them, or maybe the speaker can repeat. Otherwise, the online audience will miss the discussion.
Thank you.
Let me ask you just one question.
Yes,
I
please.
remember in 2019, there was a proposal
Yeah.
to reform the system and replace all these different schemes for just one universal point system.
Point system. Yeah.
What's your view on that?
Yeah, in 2019, it was also, you're right. It was this project to move to one scheme, point-based scheme, almost like you remember this second pillar, compulsory ARCO, that ran on point basis. So it was, of course, it was a project to move to this one, to have one scheme based on point. But we had the COVID-19, and also before the COVID, we had a different manifestation, protest. We had a different situation, and then we had the COVID, and then it changed. Yeah,
I think at least academically was very interesting proposal. I don't know, maybe in practice it's not that feasible, but
but with the reform that we had this last weeks, it was also there is also this. Of course, we from here you hear about this increase in retirement age, but other changes also. Were introduced also in the pension system, and mainly about these special schemes, with an harmonization, and they have to follow. Many of them they have to follow the rules that we have for the employees in the private sectors, and so there are many changes. But on Thursday, there is a discussion again in the Parliament about the pension reform. We will see.
Okay. So I'm sorry that we are late on the schedule, so I'm sorry to save your questions for later. Okay, and move to our second guest speaker of this afternoon. So please thank again Najat. Thank you very much. So our second guest speaker is Pierre Devolder. He's the representative of Belgium in this seminar. Currently, he's a professor and actuary in UC Louvain. He has a long-standing research career in many areas of the actuarial field, and lately we've seen him very active on pensions. So we are very happy and glad to count with Pierre. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to the organizers for this kind invitation and to permit me to explain you a little bit the situation in Belgium, which, as we will see, is a complicated country. I first start with a flag, just to show you that we have a nice map and a nice flag. But okay, for pension, it's another story. Okay, so just starting as Najat presents some figures, very general, very rapidly. So Belgium has a little more than 11 million inhabitants. And you can see here I will go very rapidly, some figures about life expectation. I think that's the same story in every country. And as a result, as you can see, an expected huge increase of the dependence ratio, taking 67 as pension age. And perhaps, as you can see also, the absolute number of retirees, I think that impressed a lot of people to see. You see that nowadays we have nearly in Belgium from the 11 million people, 2 million retirees. And you see that in the next decades, this will go to 3 million retirees, 1 million retirees more, and the population will not change a lot. So clearly, this is, of course, as you can imagine, a huge challenge. Okay, so in this presentation, I will go through these 4 points. So I will start with to give you a general idea about the general Belgian architecture of pension. Some point about the players in this domain, and also a slide on communication tools, because I think that's something quite important in pension nowadays. I will give you then some figures about occupational pension. So you will see it will be a little bit different from Najat. So Belgium is very different from France. So in Najat, so we are independent. So sorry. So you see that it's very different, and we are much more focused on fully funded system than on pay-as-you-go. And then finally, some conclusion and challenges. Okay, first I have tried to summarize, if you want just to remain with me just for one slide and then sleep. This is probably the 6 key messages of this presentation. The first one is that Belgium is a Bismarckian country, which meaning that we have, from a lot of reasons, important, not so bad, first pillar system in pay-as-you-go, like in France, but also with increasing focus on fully funded second pillar. So we are a sort of intermediate country. As you know, we are in the middle of Europe, so we have some influence from the south and some influence from the north. And you will see that, and as one of the reasons why for us this seminar is so interesting, we are in a changing period of time in Belgium. We are moving really now to much more focus on fully funded system than in the past. We have 3 main categories of workers, and as you can see, with very different public pensions. That's the reason why I say that civil servant is not so bad. That's the reason why I move from private sector to university. I know you understand why. So you can see the mean pension of first pillar. This is the first pillar, the mean first pillar pension, depending on the kind of contract. And you can see definitively that, of course, the civil servant have a good pension in Belgium. The first pillar is quite good. The employees, okay, not so bad, but not so good. And finally, the self-employed have a very low pension level. The third point is that we need absolutely a reform of the first pillar. So we have very old first pillars, nearly without any serious reform for decades. We are pay-as-you-go DB system, very classical, but we are nowadays, and I will come back to this later, we are completely in Belgium in the phase of political paralysis where nothing can happen this year. And I will explain that later in my presentation. Next point, the second pillar, that will be the main basis of my presentation, which is in extension for 20 years. So we are really living in Belgium in a very interesting period where this second pillar is growing and growing. It's still not compulsory, but nearly compulsory. So I have put work in progress to show you that this is really progressing. And then finally, 2 important points that will be more specifically addressed by Jennifer tomorrow, or the day after, I don't remember, in the future, okay? Which is the problem of tax cost of the second pillar, which can give a negative image of the second pillar, because for the state, the deduction as a cost, that's the first point, which is for the time being a lot of discussion, and also the fact that for the time being in Belgium, for the second pillar, we don't have any annuity market, meaning that all the second pillar is paid by lump sum and not by annuity, which is a challenge. Of course, that's not the case for the first pillar. Okay, so first this slide shows you a sort of global view of the 3 pillars. So in Belgium, we are in a classical architecture with the first pillar, which is the public pension. You see in blue, all these schemes are pay-as-you-go DB, okay? We have pillar 2, which is occupational pension plans, which are all fully funded. and can be DB or DC, mainly DC. That's the reason why I put a little DB and a huge DC. And finally, the pillar 3, which are the individual products, okay, which is individual saving. That's the structure, let's say, in Belgium. And I have tried to put some plus to show you, let's say, the generosity of the importance of all these boxes. You see that for pillar 1, civil servants have an excellent first pillar. They don't need a second pillar because the first pillar is everything for them. For the employee, it's less good, but there is a pillar 2 occupational pension, and for the self-employed, okay, that's not so important. And you see that pillar 3, that's of course for everybody because it's just financial product. I will come to that later to ask you the question, is pillar 3 pension? But that's another debate. Okay. If I now make a zoom on the first pillar, first, the retirement age, and I completely agree with Najat to say that the retirement age is just one component, because this is a legal retirement age, and in Belgium, nobody go to retirement at the legal age. But okay, that's nevertheless a legal age. So it's 65 for the time being, and as you can see, there is a road to increase that legal retirement to 67. These systems are DB pay as you go, this first pillar, and I just show you civil servant and employees to show you the reason of the difference, and that's quite clear. You see that for civil servant, the formula is 75% of the mean salary on the last 10 years without nearly any capping. There is a maximum pension, but the maximum pension is 9,000 euro a month, which is not so bad. So it means that in practice, civil servants have an excellent pension, no cap, and just a mean on the last 10 years, and 75%. And in top of that, that's a magic country, no contribution. So that's a special pay-as-you-go with no contribution. But okay, that means that it's the state budget who pay the pension. Okay, for the employees, you see that's another story. It's not 75, it's 60%. It's not the last 10 years, but it's the whole career. So we take all the salary of the career, of course, indexed, but nevertheless, we take into account all the wages. And these wages are capped, okay? Nowadays, in 2023, the cap is 70,000 euro. So you see, of course, the result, and there is, of course, contribution rates. Okay, so you can see here directly the two main reasons why, the three main reasons why civil servants have a good pension. The percentage, the overage on 10 years of on the whole career, and the capping on the salary. So this is now the formula for employees. I have my sigma, which is in my slides. I don't know if you can see the same as me. So normally it should be a sigma, but it seems that in Spain you don't like the sigma. I don't know why. So it's a question mark, but your question mark should be a sigma, okay? So let's imagine, okay? So you see that the pension it's not so different from the formula of Najat. So it's 60% for employees now. So I come back now to employees because I will move to second pillar. So it's 60%. And normally we have a career of 45 years, okay? So it's a mean on the 45 year of career. And then you see that it's essentially all the different salaries which are capped, and then there is a minimum, so that's a max of min, but whatever. So that's the salary which are capped, and then we indexed the old salary, that's the C at the end of the formula, so we indexed the salary. So it's essentially what we called in pension theory a career overage, revaluate, and capped pension. And so you see two important points to mention here. The fact that we take an average on the whole career, which has a huge impact, of course, and the fact that there is a cap on the salary. These are two main effects that, of course, as consequence, produce pension not so generous for employees. And that's the result. That's, I think, an interesting indicator who give you the replacement rate for the first pillar in Belgium. Okay, so if you just have the first pillar, just that, just the social security for employees, okay, for civil servants is different, you see that essentially for low salary, it's not so different from 60%, okay? But you can see directly that it rapidly decreases, and of course decrease very quickly for important salary, okay? So of course that's the result of the capping, as you can imagine. And that's in fact the origin of the second pillar in Belgium, of course, which is this. We are not like in France with a whole pay-as-you-go, very generous. We have just that as first pillar in pay-as-you-go. Okay, just exactly like in other country, this first pillar is not so generous, but is nevertheless not so sustainable. That's the bad news, huh? So that's not a good car, but the car is expensive. That's a little bit the summary. So we have a real sustainability problem. You see, this is the projection of the total expenses of this first pillar, all the categories together. So nowadays we are close to 11% of the GDP, and we will normally move to nearly 14% of the GDP. So 3 points of GDP. That's not a good news. We have a complete lack of trust in the state pension, especially for young people. When I make my presentation to young students, to my students, the reaction is immediate and say, why not to switch to fully funded system and abandon pay-as-you-go, which for me it's a mistake, but nevertheless, it gives you the reaction of mistrust with respect to pay-as-you-go. We have many unfair mechanisms, I am sure also in France, which is the result of the past, which gives some privilege. And we have a complete political paralysis. Exactly like in France, 10 years ago, a commission, and I had the pleasure to be member of that commission, has proposed to the government, that was a commission which was asked by the government, we propose a unique point system, okay? A little different from France, but nearly the same spirit, to have a point system in pay-as-you-go for the first pillar and to destroy, to change all the existing system. But unfortunately, this report has been put under the table, and since that, we are living in Belgium in the government of coalition, so that's a special aspect of Belgium, perhaps different from Spain or from France, which is the fact that nearly all the parties are at the government. Because we have in Belgium, the present government is in some sense has been elected against extremists and independentists. So it was a reaction of these two blocs. All the other parties try to be together to eliminate, let's say, populists and independentists. And the result is that in this government we have Liberal Party, Socialist Party, Green Party, everybody is together at the government, and you can imagine that from an economical point of view, this guy just agree on one point, they hate the other one. But, okay, to change something, that's quite complicated. So there is a lot of difficulties for the time being to change this first pillar. And we have now a Minister of Pension, which is from the Socialist Party, so you can imagine that, well, you can imagine some things, that we have even social measures, which are perhaps good measures, for instance, the minimum pension, but which continue to increase the cost. So we are going into the other direction. We should make some change in the system, and we continue to have some extra expenses for, let's say, political reasons. Okay, so now let's move to the second pillar, which is the main part of my presentation, and essentially on occupational pension for employees. So I will essentially focus my presentation on employees, okay, what we call in Belgium the occupational pension. Okay, so first of all, the first principle in Belgium until now is that there is a freedom for the employer to create an occupational pension plan. Okay, he can do that or not. And the level of this plan is completely free. So he can decide on a free way the importance of this plan. Of course, when the plan exists, all the workers must be affiliated, of course. All this system, that's the difference with France, so it's first the choice of the employer. Second big difference, it's completely fully funded, and that's the law. We must have a second pillar which is completely fully funded with individual or collective fully funded system. It can be DB or DC. I put DC in priority. And we have essentially three main actors in that domain. In Belgium, that's also perhaps a special characteristic, the insurer dominate the market. Okay, so nearly 70% of the market of occupational pension are group life insurance or collective insurance. It depends on the name, but these are the insurer. We have also private pension fund, and also something quite new and very promising perhaps, and I will come back to this later, which are sector pension fund, which is something quite new for Belgium. As already mentioned, the payment of benefits is nearly lump sum. 99% of the pension of the second pillar I pay in lump sum, so we don't have any annuity. So when some guy asks an annuity, we send it to the doctor, because that's something very strange to ask an annuity in Belgium. But there is nevertheless a challenge, because for civil servant, everything is in annuity, of course. Huh? You remember the civil servant have a big first pillar, which by definition is in annuity. So you can understand that politicians are looking to the second pillar, to all these guys going to retirement with big lump sum, which is impossible for civil servants. So there are some pressure from the political side to say, no, pension is an annuity. So for the time being, okay, it's a sort of standstill, but okay, we can imagine that it could change in the future. There is an upper limit to the second pillar, which is a tax rule, which say that the sum of the first and the second pillar cannot exceed, there is a percentage which is missing. They cannot exceed 80% of the last salary. So the maximum replacement rate, the two pillars together, is 80% for fiscal reasons. So you can exceed that point, but then it's not deductible, okay? And it means that nobody do that, of course. Okay, so just to analyze with you a little bit, and I think it could be interesting to show you an experience of development of the second pillar. In Belgium, we have essentially two phases, and perhaps three phases, if I look at the future, of evolution of this second pillar. The first phase was just after the Second World War, until, let's say, the 90s. And you remember that I show you that in the first pillar for employees, the salaries are capped. You remember? So there is nothing above the cap. So in fact, from an historical point of view, the first reason, the first motivation to introduce a second pillar in Belgium was the fact that for, let's say, white collar, for executive people, there was a need to have something above the cap. And the second pillar was there, in some sense, to give enough, let's say, revenues above the cap. And I just show you here in this slide some kind of formulas existing at that time. So you see, for instance, the first one, the second pillar was just 70% of the last salary. It's just an example. Huh? Minus, there is a minus normally there, minus social security. So you see the logic. We take an objective and we subtract the social security. That was a typical second pillar pension plan in, let's say, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s in Belgium. That was the typical pension plan. Another way to do that also in DB was to give, to use the cap and to give less benefit below the cap and more benefit on the part above the cap. That's just to show you the obsession to supplement the cap. Okay, that was really a little bit the reason, the motivation of the second pillar. I just show you also in DC, you see also in DC we had this kind of formula with a lower rate on the first part and a bigger rate above this part. So this was a little bit the main, let's say, the main reason of existence of this second pillar. You see, of course, and Jennifer will also come back to this point Wednesday. Of course, this means a concentration of second pillar on medium and high salaries, of course, because you can understand that low salary don't need that, because low salary have already a first pillar which is not so bad. Huh? You remember, it could be better, of course, but you remember this thing? You remember that? Okay, so the result of that evolution was that the second pillar was a little bit seen in Belgium, as something unfair, in the sense that it was just for rich people, okay? For executive, for manager, for people having, okay? And for, let's say, the classical workers, for the simple employees, there was nothing or very, very tiny benefit. And then we change a little bit, and I think it's interesting, and we are essentially nowadays in that transition. There is an increasing awareness that, in fact, and I can imagine that this is a little bit different from France, and perhaps Najat will be against that idea, that everybody, it's absolutely essential that everybody should have a mix, pay-as-you-go, fully funded. Not only the rich people, not only the executive, but everybody, because we need that mix, pay-as-you-go, fully funded. So it means that now we need, in fact, second pillar for everybody, okay? And we have had a law in 2003 who tried to, let's say, introduce this idea to generalize occupational pension plans for everybody. That was the purpose of the law, creating a new tool, which is the sector pension agreement, which was in some sense a copy of what exists in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is not present today, but in the Netherlands you have huge sector pension agreement. That was a very, very important change in Belgium. And nowadays, you will see the figures in 1 minute. This represents a lot in Belgium. So, for instance, we have the sector of electricity in Belgium. All the companies of the electricity sector have the same first pillar. The first pillar is the same for everybody, but they have a specific common second pillar. And you can understand that this automatically increases a lot, of course, the participation rate, because you directly touch a lot of companies. These plans are, of course, different from the first one, where with some, like we have seen before. So typically, this is small plans. Of course, we start with small percentage, which is a problem, as you will see later. So, for instance, in a lot of sectors now, there is a compulsory pension plan in defined contribution with 1% of salary, which is not so much, but we start the process. We have to start somewhere, okay? And you will see what are the purpose of the government. So we are in that phase nowadays in Belgium to try to move, you see, to something which is general for everybody. Of course, the other systems are still existing. That's a system of additional plans on this first phase. Just to show you also some other recent evolutions that perhaps exist also in other countries. First of all, some hybrid products which are between DB and DC. There is a real success in Belgium of what we call, but I can imagine that it exists in other countries, cash balance. I can imagine that you are a little bit familiar with that, which are sort of, let's say, notional DC. It's exactly like the notional defined contribution in Sweden for the first pillar, which are a sort of virtual DC with a notional contribution and notional rates of return. These are an important success. We come back later if you want. We have also special bonus pension plans for executives. So for the rich people, we have also some special development of this kind of formula. We have also, not so much at the end of the day, but okay, some more individual flexibility in the management of collective plan, what we call cafeteria schemes, where people can make some choice between some investment strategy. They can choose between different kinds of coverage. Okay, that exists. It's not the most popular, but that exists. And finally, just to mention that, the government has tried to introduce a new product. All the experts were against that product, meaning that it was completely stupid, but okay, sometimes politicians have their ideas, okay? So there is a creation of a new product which is a second pillar without employer. That's something new worldwide. So the idea was to say, if you are, remember that second pillar is not compulsory. So if you are in an employer without second pillar, you could nevertheless, as individual then, choose to contribute individually to a sort of pension contract which has to be managed by the employer. You see, that's a sort of third pillar inside the second pillar. As you know, perhaps Belgium is the country of surrealism. That's, I think, a good, proof of that. There is no success at all. So I think that for the time being, there is 100 contracts. So just to show you that it has been created 4 years ago. Yeah?
Sorry, who is proposing these schemes and who's running them? So who proposes these?
The employer.
The employer, but who advises them? Who's advising them?
Insurance companies are very important in Belgium, and also and the big company have pension funds. And these pension funds have a lot of consultants. So let's say consultants and insurance companies. Okay, no other point?
I have a question.
Yeah?
This second pillar is non-compulsory.
For the time being.
Yeah. And so how do you manage the transition between the old system and the new one?
How do you say?
In this second pillar. So you have worker who participate
Yeah.
at this second pillar, and then you have this new system, the fully funded new system.
That's not a new system. That's the fully funded system who exists forever.
But you said that you will have this new individual insurance or collective insurance only on lump sum. This is not new?
No, that's exactly like the other ones. So there is just one system.
Just one system.
But you could have different schemes. So somebody can have 3 second pillars. He can have a basic second pillar for all the employees, and then a supplementary. It's like we say le plan chapeau in France, a second and a third scheme. You see, but all these schemes are in the same, let's say, in the same rules.
Okay. So you mean that these second occupational pension schemes in the second pillar would be fully funded?
Everything is fully funded,
Fully funded with only lump sum?
and at the end it's lump sum. Yeah,
Fully lump sum,
yeah, nearly. Yeah, there is the right to take the annuity.
but nobody takes the annuity.
Exactly. But we will come to that You have to wait until Wednesday to know the story. Yeah.
You said that insurers dominated the
Yeah.
DC market.
The insurer dominate the second pillar.
Yes. Because is it because they offer any guarantee? Or
Yeah,
is it
yeah, exactly, yeah. They offer minimum guarantees.
Okay.
So that was the point, of course, yeah, exactly. And also the fact that Belgium is a country with a lot of medium-sized companies. We don't have, as in France, huge companies. And when we have huge companies, France take them. So we don't have a lot of big companies. So the medium companies, it's quite difficult for them to create a pension fund, you can imagine.
And these guarantees are based mostly on survivorship or on interest rates?
Both.
Both.
But more no on interest rates. The battle is on interest rates.
Yeah.
The battle on the market is on interest rates.
But Pierre, you know this description that just we are doing about this occupational pension, fully funded, non-compulsory, mainly maybe 100% of NAMSA. You know, it's exactly what we are trying to do now in France for this third pillar since the pact, the new Pact Act, since 2019.
Probably,
It's also
yeah.
a way to change it, but maybe the difference with France, with Belgium, is we still have in this third pillar, again, some of them are not compulsory, but some are compulsory. We have this possibility to get annuities.
But we have also that possibility. Huh? So the possibility exists in Belgium, and even the law imposed to the insurer to propose an annuity. But nobody take it. The difference, I think, with France is that you have this second pillar, and so I can imagine that the gap is less important in France.
No, yes, of course, the gap is less important, but when we take, for example, I have this insurance contract, savings for retirement. I have no choice. It's 100% in annuities. No, in annuities, no choice.
Yeah, I think Belgium is an exception, I think, to permit 100% lump sum. I think that the United Kingdom recently, I don't know, I speak under there was also a shift to lump sum, no?
Yeah,
To-
yes.
So-
Offer the possibility to the individuals, but of course, if you offer the possibility and there is no kind of tax incentives, the individuals will take the lump sum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Australia is
Yeah.
So there is a certain shift to lump sum
Yeah.
because of the reason was you have to avoid paternalism. People can manage their money. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But okay, we can discuss that. Huh?
Yeah, no, yeah, but just, you know, because this new law that we just implemented, with no choice, you know, you don't have the choice, you have to take the lump sum, but with the new law implemented the possibility to change and to move from lump sum to move from annuities to lump sum.
Mhm.
And it would be very interesting to see if, you know, the majority of people move to lump sum.
I don't think we should give the individuals the opportunity. Yes,
Of
they
course,
can.
I agree. But now we have this possibility since 2020 now. Great, you know, to see if people are moving or not.
10 minutes.
People move to lump sum. We will see. Because
Okay.
in France it's new.
Okay, because I am under stress by the organizers, I continue rapidly. So the third pillar, I will go very rapidly. So our third pillar, which is not the French third pillar, the third pillar is individual pensions, okay? So that, okay, which is of course available for everybody. I just put that in red. Is it pension or tax optimization? We can ask the question because in some sense, these contracts are much more chosen for fiscal reasons, and they don't create at the end a lot of benefits, of pension benefits. So, okay, I know that everybody will not agree with me, but okay. So we have in Belgium, for instance, a system which is called épargne pension, a pension saving, which is very popular in Belgium. I think it's a little bit like life insurance in France. That's basic contract that everybody has. You see the mean premium and the max premium is €1,000 a year. So with that kind of premium, okay, you can imagine that the benefits are really limited. The importance is the tax advantage. There is a tax credit. So at the end for the people, it's more, let's say, a tax operation. We have other special products. I will not go into detail. And finally, impossible here in this session, which is a European session, not to speak about a new monster, which is the Pan-European Pension Plan. Perhaps some of you know that new monster created in Brussels. Okay, no comment. Okay, I just put nothing concrete so far. I think that's not a good direction, but that's a personal point of view. I think that collective pension plans are the priority and not this kind of pure. It's not a pension. Okay, just to show you the importance of tax in Belgium, and I think I will move to Spain, Mercé, if you, Mercé is not listening to me, but okay. So you see the reason why life insurance is so important in Belgium. You see, we are the first one in a list of countries of the ODCE. You see the first one. You can try to find your country, but what's clear is that Belgium is #1. That's the mean tax rate on salaries. That's a very interesting study from the ODCE, who give a lot of details about the level of tax in different countries. You see that Spain is nearly at the end of the list. So Jennifer, I think you didn't optimize your position, but okay. But okay, so thank you for your solidarity to move to Belgium. Okay, so but this is interesting because in Belgium it has been a huge motivation, and the sales forces of insurance company sell this product by saying you will have a saving in terms of tax, you see, and of course with this kind of rates, that's of course quite important. So that's the reason why for the third pillar in Belgium, is this pension or not, I have some question. Okay, because I have just 10 minutes, you will have some website if you are interested to see some statistics and things like that. Perhaps an important point, just in 1 minute, is, I don't know if you are familiar with the pension tracking system, which are the new digital way to communicate in terms of pension, which is the future of pension. And we have something in that context in Belgium, mypension.be, and this system is now, has now an integrated system, first and second pillar, which I think is quite interesting. So when you are going to that website, you can see, and there is a sort of public institution who collect all the different data from the insurance companies, for the pension funds, whatever, trying to give a global image. And now if I am going to that database, I can directly see in some clicks, I can have a projection of my pension, first pillar, and of all my pension, second pillar. I think that's the future of pension, and I think that's something we are working on, and it's promising. Okay, I have just some figures because Mercé asked a lot of figures. So I put a lot of figures, but it's not so. Okay, just you see the participation rate, which is nearly 74%, which is not so bad. Huh? 20 or 30 years ago, it was less than 50%. So you see, it's rapidly increasing. So that's the good point. The bad point is that, as you can see, the mean reserve is very low. Okay? So it means that everybody now has a second pillar, but a teeny second pillar, which is, I think, a big danger for the future, because it means that a lot of people will receive at pension a ridiculous pension from the second pillar. And they will say, you see, fully funded is stupid, long live to pay as you go. But, okay, that's the result of small contribution. But we have to be aware of that. So before promoting the second pillar for everybody, we have to be sure to have enough contribution. For instance, the big sector pension have a mean contribution rate for now in Belgium of 0.5%. If you contribute 0.5% all your life, even in an excellent pension fund, even with excellent return, okay, but you will have peanuts. And if you transform that in annuity, you have super peanuts. Huh? So you see, that's a challenge. And that's a big hesitation for the time being. Do we impose second pillar, which I think is a good direction, but then be careful with that risk. Okay, I will go through that rapidly. You have this information. I suppose I have to stop. 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so I finish because I give some course in the business school. In the business school, everybody speak about SWOT analysis. So I was a little bit forced to present you a SWOT analysis of the second pillar in Belgium. So you see, that's a summary as conclusion. We have some strengths for the time being, and perhaps it could be interesting for all of you to see where you are in this kind of table. For the strengths, I think we have good and sound basic structure. I have tried to convince you that we have not so bad structure. We have a positive trend in terms of evolution of the second pillar, and you see that we have even the public who invest in a database. So it means that even the public sector invests for communication. So that's a good point. We have weaknesses. First of all, the first pillar is not on the top. There is big inequalities, which is a little bit also the result of the past. And as mentioned, that's not yet really material for many people. Very small benefits. We have, I think, big opportunities, which is perhaps something which is common for everybody here in this room, which is the increasing awareness and the financial literacy, which is such that more and more people, I think, are aware of the necessity to save for their pension. So that's, I think, a good opportunity. The second point is the fact that nowadays in Belgium, pension is really a part of human resource contract. If you want to attract good element in a company, you must show that your company has a good pension plan. Otherwise, you will not attract a lot of people. So it's step by step, it becomes an argument to have good people. And opportunity, we have, of course, an annuity market still to develop. We have trusts, of course, tax reforms, political uncertainty, that's, of course, a big danger. Inflation, probably I was surprised not to see Najat speaking about inflation, because, of course, for the people which are the fan of pay-as-you-go, inflation is a good news, because normally in pay-as-you-go, inflation is less, let's say, important than in fully funded system. In fully funded system, you destroy value with inflation. And that's, of course, it's complicated to convince nowadays people to create new pension plan with the level of interest rate of today. That's a challenge. And with the very low returns, that's not so easy. And finally, of course, you have still some ideological positions against fully funded system. And this is for Wednesday, like we say in French, à suivre. Okay, thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Pierre, for your presentation. We have time for 1 or 2 quick questions you have. No? Okay, so we can move to our last guest speaker of this session, which is Onofre Simoes. He's the representative of Portugal from Universidade de Lisboa. So this feels a bit like the Eurovision Song Contest. So at the end,
how many points?
At the end, yeah, you can vote an award from 1 to 12 points. Your 10 favorite speakers. So But if you win, next year you have to organize the seminar in your country. So that's a catch. Okay? So when you're ready.
So I also want to thank Mercé and Oriol and all the people who made this possible for this seminar. This is my agenda, so 4 parts. And I start before the Portuguese Revolution in April 1974, there was really no social security system in the country. There was some kind of protection, mainly to civil servants, and that was a priority. So less than a month after the revolution, it is recommended that the system, the existing system, should be replaced by an integrated social security system. And the right to social security was stated for the first time in 1976. So it is declared that the social security system must protect citizens in many situations, particularly in situations of old age. We have had many reforms, but the current basic law was issued in 2007. Our system is a pay-as-you-go system, as in other countries, and the expenses with pensions correspond to the largest amount. So 80% of the total amount of the social security expenses are directed to pensions. And this is about 9% of the GDP. You can see that before 1974, there were none, almost. And since then, it has been increasing and increasing and increasing. But the government very soon found out that there were issues with the system. And the system is in danger because of low fertility. Portugal is one of the countries in the world with lowest fertility rates. So it has been on a downward trend for over 50 years now. And for almost 40 years, the rate has been below the replacement level. So the natural change has been negative since 2009, and the number of inhabitants began to decline in 2010. This is one side of the coin. The other side is the progress in longevity. So the progress in mortality rates, and this is expressed very clearly in the increase in life expectancy at birth and also at the age of 65. You can see here how the fertility rates have been decreasing. So in 1960, more than 3 children, now less than 1.5 children, and decreasing. The life expectancy at birth, on the opposite, is always increasing. So females, bigger values in the middle, all the population on the top, and males at the bottom. So life expectancy at 65 follows the life expectancy at birth tendency, and it is increasing. You can see a slight decrease in the last years because of COVID. After all, it seems that it was not so big, the decrease. They have revised the numbers, and after all, it's not so dramatic as it seemed to be. But the point is that life expectancy at the age of 65 has always been increasing. And we have seen this before. We're going to see it again. So the number of individuals aged 65 and over per 100 people of working age, as you can see, it was a bit more than 10 in 1960, and now it's almost 40. This is the past. The future seems to be worse than this. So the projections for the future are quite dramatic. And according to a study conducted by the National Institute of Statistics 5 years ago, between 2018 and 2080, Portugal may lose 2 million inhabitants. The number of young people is going to be reduced by about 1 million. The number of elderly people is going to increase about 3 million. the working age population will decline by around 2.4 million. So the potential sustainability index will be less than half it is now. And that's why we have these pyramids, these population pyramids. So in 1970, not bad. Now we have an old population, and here I did not have the courage to put the 2070 projection, but in 2040 is very bad already, so we have a very old population. So here you have the number of people that working, sorry?
How much does immigration affect this?
Not much. So you can see here in this graph, number of people at working age per 100 people, age 65 or more. In the scenario without migrations, which is this, the blue one, the light blue one, as you can see, has a very little effect. So we have a number of scenarios here, but the one that really matters is the central scenario, the dark blue, the continuous line. And you can see that the number of people at working age per 100 people, age 65 or more, in 1991 was almost 500, and it is expected to fall to less than 140 in the future. So the government very soon observed that this would be the trend, and we have had a number of different reforms. And the European Commission and the OCDE recognize this, that Portugal has been particularly active in reforming its social security pension system in the last decades, and the focus is precisely improving financial sustainability. So we can refer increasing the period over which the reference wage is calculated. Now it's a whole life. The pensionable salary is calculated over the whole life of the contributions. We equalize the retirement age for women and men. At first 60 for women, 65 for men. Now no longer 65 for none. Introducing a sustainability factor and linking the retirement age to life expectancy. Those were the measures taken by the government. And I will give you a quick overview of how the pension method the way we calculate the pensions has changed. So in 93, it was very easy. So 2%, it was the accrual rate. The number of pension of years with sufficient record of contributions is then, and you have the pensionable salary, so the reference remuneration, which was very easy to calculate. So you pick the best 10 years in the last 15 years of contributions. We have 14 payments per year. You divide by 140, and that's it. 9 years after this, huge changes. So for pensioners with 20 or less years of earnings, we kept the previous formula, but as you can see, it is much more complex when we have more than 20 years of contributions. We can see that the accrual rate is decreasing, so this is meant to increase the lower pensions and to decrease or not to increase as much the highest pensions. In 2007, another reform, and here it is explicitly explained that the reform aims to introduce appropriate measures to face the risk of demographic aging. So it was very easy. The amount of the pension was cut off by this sustainability factor. So you calculate the pension in the same way, but now you multiply the result by this sustainability factor, which was calculated at the time in this way. So this is the ratio between the life expectancy in year 2006, which was the previous year, and the life expectancy in the year before retirement. At first, this was a very small curve, less than 1%, but in 2013, it was almost 5%. And this was the last year this sustainability factor was applied. Because in 2014, the sustainability factor was abolished, and the measure was over the normal, the legal retirement age. So in 2015, it was changed to 66 years, 1 year, immediately. And in 2015, it remained at 66 years, but from 2016 onwards, it would vary according to the evolution of life expectancy at 65. So now it is calculated in this way. The legal retirement age in year N is equal to 66 years plus a number of months, which is calculated in that way. But for you to have an idea, in the current year, it is 66 years and 4 months. But last year, it was 66 years and 7 months. Pierre told us that no one retires at the legal retirement age in Belgium. In Portugal, you cannot afford early retirement because this sustainability factor was maintained to early retirement, and it was aggravated. So now it's not the life expectancy in year 2006, as it was before, is the life expectancy in 2000 divided by the life expectancy in the year before retirement. This, in this year, means a cut of 15% in the amount of the pension, plus 0.5% cut for each month of retirement before the legal retirement age. So, if you retire 1 year before these 66 years and 7 months, your cut is going to be 20%. So it's not affordable. And when this measure was implemented, the government wanted to put a stop to early retirement at all costs, and it succeeded, and it still goes on these days. The point is that following these actions, short-term pressures on the system have eased. And I suppose this explains, at least partially, what we are going to see next. Next, I'm going to give you a lot of numbers, like Merce asked, for the supplementary system. Here you have an overview. You can see in a quick view that we have many options. And we are going to kind of quickly look at each one of them. So the structure of the Portuguese it's no compulsory second pillar or third pillar in Portugal. So it's optional. We have a number of private occupational funded schemes, a number of private personal funded schemes, and we have one public personal funded scheme. I suppose this is exclusive to Portugal, but I don't know. In fact, we don't use this second pillar and third pillar terminology. Neither the Autoridade de Supervisão de Seguros e Fundos de Pensões, ASF, the Portuguese Insurance Authority, Supervisor Authority, never refers a second pillar or a third pillar, refers planos de pensões profissionais, occupational plans, and to planos de pensões financiados através de adesões individuais, personal pension plans. First, we are going to look at the private occupational plans. These can be closed pension funds, delivered through closed pension funds, or open pension funds through collective membership, or can be, from another point of view, defined benefit plans or defined contribution plans. So I have this period, this 10-year period, between 2011 and 2021, with particular focus on the last 5 years. But we can see that the number of funds, the occupational, so we don't use it, but this is the second pillar, has been relatively stable in this 10-year period. So a slight decrease in the number of closed funds and a slighter increase in the number of open funds. And this has been the trend over the last 10 years. The membership has not changed that much. So the number of members of plans in 2021 is very similar to that of 2011. But we see that there is a significant decrease in the percentage of the members in closed plans, which is kind of expectable, from 70% 4% of participants 10 years ago and only 55% in 2021. The key point here is that overall coverage of occupational pension plans is very low. So the active members represent only 2.9% of the working age population. So coverage has been relatively stable for the past 10 years. It's increasing very slightly. I'm not going to show you the numbers, but I can show some of them. So we can see that number of plans, it was equal to 687, and 10 years ago, now is 813. But I jumped a lot of slides, sorry. I don't know how I could do this. Because I keep pressing the wrong button, that's why. Sorry. So we are still here. The occupational pension funds, but now I'm not going to show the numbers. Just a quick look at the contributions. So closed funds have been losing weight. It's a fact in both number and members, but this does not reflect in the same way in the amount of contributions received, which is still around 86% of total contributions, and I will explain later why this is the case. In some years, the sponsors of the closed funds with defined benefit, and most of the defined benefit plans are closed plans, have to make extraordinary contributions to maintain the adequate level of funding. This happened 5 years ago, and again 3 years ago, to address the increase in the value of liabilities arising from the review in law of the discount rates. The assets under management are not that impressive, because when you look at the assets of the occupational fund represent a very small percentage of the GDP, 7.4% in 2011 and 10.2% in 2021. But the main point here is that the largest closed funds have not been affected by the tendency to disappear or to be transferred to open funds, because they keep most of the contributions and they keep most of the assets under management. So they decrease in number, they decrease in membership, but what really matters, the contributions and the assets under management are still on their side. Now, the same plans, the same occupational plans, but from the perspective of being defined benefit or defined contribution. So, in general, the number of plans has increased, but on the side of defined contribution plans, and this is the case all over Europe, as much as I know, because the number of defined benefit plans has been decreasing steadily over the 10-year period. So the number of members in defined benefit plans, which was 63%, corresponded to 63% of participants 10 years ago, is only 36% now, in 2021. And this is related to the parallel evolution observed for closed funds and open funds. So most of the defined benefit plans are in closed funds, and most of the defined contribution plans are in open funds. That's why this happens. Assets under management. In line with the previous conclusions, we see that the percentage of assets backing defined benefit plans, although the decrease in membership, although the decrease in the number of plans has almost not changed. So it's extremely high. So the point is that defined benefit plans have almost it all. So 90% of the assets are in these plans, and practically no changes in the last 5 years. So in spite of the large increase in both the number and membership to defined contribution plans, but it's just like Pierre told, what does it matter? What really matters is the level of the contributions and the level of the assets. And it's very low, in fact. So the volume of assets backing these plans has only increased from 4.7 of the total to 7.8, which is very little. which is very little. So the shift in total assets from DB to DC plans is incomparably much smaller than the shift in membership. And according to OECD, this results from the wide disparity, and this is the fact, between contributions made to defined benefit and defined contribution occupational schemes. Because the defined benefit members are employed in highly remunerated industries, banking, insurance, and large multinational companies. So they can contribute more, and the employers even contribute more than the employees to these schemes. The point is, we have most of the assets, most of the contributions, defined benefit closed plans. These closed plans tend to disappear because they are not open to new entrants. So if this persists, even if the number of defined contribution plans increases, even if the membership increases, if the contributions remain very low, overall assets and contributions to occupational pension plans are going to decline. And this is something we expect to happen. Moving to private personal plans, this can be financed through traditional open pension funds or retirement savings plans, which is something similar to a product that was referred for Belgium. So the Portuguese expression is planos poupança reforma, PPRs, and they are also very popular, as the ones in Belgium seem to be also. Here they are financed through pension funds. They were created in 1989 to encourage long-term savings to finance retirement and to help the Portuguese capital market to grow. So this number, the number of these plans has increased slowly but steadily in the last 10 years. But the PPRs have increased much quicker than traditional open plans. The percentages of active participants in open funds and in PPR is not changing in line with the change in the number, because in fact the percentage of members in the PPR funds decreased by 20%. In number they increased. The overall coverage of these personal pension plans is almost as low as the coverage of occupational plans, because they represent 3.4% of the working age population. But in spite of being low, it has increased. 10 years ago, it was only 1.8% of the working population. So here we have the number, it's increasing. The traditional open funds increase less than the PPRs, but overall there is an increase. The active membership, as you see, it's also increasing. The weight of the PPRs is decreasing. Contributions, overall contributions to personal pension funds are rather modest, but they have increased because the start was very low, more than 12 times since 2011, and this is good. Contributions to traditional open funds have increased faster, which is in accordance with the increase in the percentage of active participants in open funds. As a result of this, the increases in membership and contributions, the percentage of assets managed by traditional open funds increased in this period. But the percentage of GDP is very small, 0.3% in 2011, 1.2% in 2021. So in fact, the number is huge, the membership is huge, but what really matters is quite small, very small. Now we are going to add up the private occupational plus the private personal plans, and we can see that the number of occupational funds has decreased, the number of personal funds has increased, active participants in occupational funds is at the same level, so the occupational has not changed, but the number of participants in personal open funds has increased by more than 100,000. But contributions to personal plans have been increasing. Contributions to occupational funds must follow the funding needs, therefore they fluctuate much more. Assets belonging to occupational funds still represent 90% of total assets under management by pension funds. And overall, they correspond to 11% of GDP, showing a very slightly increasing trend. In the first presentation, there was a map, and Portugal was not as light as France. This depends, because, yes, because it was over 20% of GDP that included you in the light blue area, and Portugal was there. But not all agree with this, because as you can see, when you add the personal plans with the occupational plans, this is only 11% of the GDP, so it's not 20%. And some people stick to this number, and we would be in the very light, in the white area, really. But why is that? Why is that in that graph we were light blue and not white? It's because of this. That's not the end of the story. We have two other chapters, and the two other chapters are these. The PPRs, we have seen before, the PPRs, but now they are no longer financed through pension funds. They are financed through insurance contracts and investment funds. And why some people struggle to include, it's the same, it's for tax purposes that people join these schemes, or is because they are willing to have better income after retirement. Here we don't know, because there is a number of situations in which individuals can withdraw pension assets without a penalty. Retirement is just one. Reaching the age of 60 is another one. Long-term unemployment of the participant or a member of their household, another one. Permanent disability of the participant or a member of their household, also. Serious illness of the participant or a member of their household, another one. The payment of installments or a mortgage or on the participant's permanent residence, another one. And additionally to all these, participants may redeem their assets outside of this criteria subject to penalties. In this year, there are no, 2023, there are no penalties for other cases.
Yeah, but I think because this kind of regime, they run like savings.
Yes, but people go after, yes, but the level of savings is low, and people go mainly after the tax deductions, although the benefits are going to be taxed afterwards.
One reason why OECD do not take into account this number in their statistics.
OECD takes it. That's why, yes, because otherwise you'd have only 11% of GDP. With this, you have more than 20%. That's why. So membership is not possible to determine because data is at an account level, and there are many people with multiple accounts, so you cannot really tell. But an OECD estimate published in 2019 gives a rough estimate in this interval. I think it is overestimated. And this fluctuates a lot. So in 2020, the total PPR premiums and contributions decreased by 45.7%, which is huge. And it was not because of the pandemic. It was due to the significant decrease in contributions for PPRs in the form of life insurance, whose yields have been very negatively affected by the prolonged environment of low interest rates. So people stopped buying this product because it was not, there was no reason to invest on this. 2021, there was a slight recovery, but investment funds are gaining attractiveness when compared to PPRs. So assets under management, in spite of the negative evolution of the insurance contracts, it's most of the assets are on the side of the insurance contracts, 80%. It was 93% 10 years ago, and that's why we have the blue color, because assets managed correspond to around 10%. added to the other 11% gives 21%, so you are out of the white zone and you are in the very light blue zone. But some people really do not agree with this because you don't know where this money goes to, because you have all these criteria to withdraw the money. Am I okay? I don't need to hurry up? Okay. So here we have numbers. And now we have...
You have a lot of tax advantage for these products.
Not really, because you have limits. The limits are always changing. It's very complex. But you are not investing. That's why you have many participants. Many of them have different PPR accounts. But the amounts are small.
But it's not because of tax programs.
No, because people invest till they get the tax benefit. Because after a certain limit, there is no more benefit. So you don't apply your money there. You stop. So, but you have many people and many little pieces.
That's tax saving.
Yes.
And not pension.
Yes. Like you said. But the fact is that when you get the benefits are taxed. So it's income that it is taxed.
Sorry, may I have a question?
Of course.
How do you think who benefits mainly from this tax relief? I refer to income quantities, yes? So
No, it's not.
bottom or upper income quantities? More rich people or?
No, because the point here is the limits after which you no longer have tax benefits are very low, so to attract everyone. So rich people contribute. I don't know because you don't have that kind of numbers. We don't know who is buying. We have the accounts. You don't know the income of people who purchase these, but I suppose. This is meant to middle income people.
Maybe because
yes.
when it comes to tax relief in pension system, this is also a problem in Poland. The main beneficiaries are people from upper income quantities. Yes? So actually we have redistribution in a negative direction, in an unexpected direction. Yes.
But
from poorer to richer.
Yes.
Not the role of a pension system.
Yes, but here I suppose because of the limits are very low, there is really not a difference between the rich people and the because when you fill in your tax your statement, it does not matter how much you have earned. If you have exceeded the limit, the deductible limit, it's over. So, and it is low. If it were very high limit, yes, poor people could not reach that limit. But the limits are very low. So almost everyone can reach the limit. And the limits are changing.
If you exceed a given amount of money, you cannot use this tax relief. Or you can, however, to a given limit.
Yes. I don't remember the exact limit, but imagine that the limit is 30% of how much you put in these products with a maximum of 500 per year. Okay. It works like this. So if you invest more than 1,500, no additional benefit from the point of view of tax relief.
The question is, who will invest?
I really don't know. I cannot tell.
More rich people are more likely to invest to this limit than poor people.
But the limit is very low, so.
Okay. However, we will have.
I don't have. I don't know who. You don't have. You have the accounts. You don't have. But maybe if you. If you have access, I suppose it's not possible to the IRS statements. You could see how much people invest, how much. But the point is that we don't have that kind of information. So this last chapter is the public capitalization regime, which is fully managed by by the government, and it was created following the introduction of the sustainability factor, because the sustainability factor decreased the amount of pensions. People at that time, 0.5% is not that much. Now it's 15%, but people at that time did not know because we couldn't guess the improvements in longevity. But the government had an idea and so decided to launch this product so people could create habits of putting some more money for retirement. So it offers a voluntary personal pension plan. The administration and investment management is carried out by the Ministry of Labour, Solidarity and Social Security, and it was not a success. Again, wrong button, 10,000 members since 2008. At the end of the last year, the value of the assets was 52 million euros. This is less than the huge prize you get in the Euro Million lottery if you are lucky enough. So it was not a success, this measure. So, and the worst part is coming. As with other investment funds, monthly contributions are converted into units in a common investment fund. And now you see what happened to the units last year. So they were increasing slowly, but increasing, and last year they dropped. So I suppose this is not good for the increase of this solution. Now, because Mercé also asked this, individuals generally receive information on the accumulated pension assets and investment returns on an annual basis, but there is no single platform where members can see everything. But, however, interested people can access information about all these matters in a number of different channels. The ASF, the supervisor authority, has detailed information about almost everything. And then you have the Portuguese Association of Insurance, providing information on the returns and risks of unit-linked PPRs and open pension funds managed by insurance companies. The Portuguese Securities Market Commission, information on PPR investment funds, fees, the risk indicator, the fund's investment return, which has already been asked for. The Portuguese Association of Investment Funds, Pensions and Assets provides information on the historical and current performance of all open pension funds. And of course, the Social Security website provides information about the public capitalization regime. Now, I'm going to show you again but we already know that this does not mean much. It does not mean much, really. So the occupational plans plus the personal plans account for about 20% of the GDP, about 20% of the working age population. So not much. And OECD has declared that Portugal's voluntary pension system can be improved and suggests a number of measures, improving incentives to contribute to the system by simplifying the tax system, which is complex, tightening the rules for withdrawals from PPRs because they should be strictly limited, encouraging at least partial annuitization in retirement, but there is nothing really to annuitize because the level of assets in these funds is quite low, and and encouraging the growth of occupational pension plans because this seems to be the best way to do it, and small employers could use multi-employer plans. But my favorite suggestion is this one here, raising awareness with financial literacy programs that focus on planning retirement income. Because ASF, the authority, carried out last year a survey in a partnership with the University of Minho on long-term savings for retirement, and only 40% of the answers of the respondents said that they have saved at any point in their lives with the purpose of saving for retirement. And questioned about the main reason for saving, then most of them, 31%, answered to deal with unexpected events, need to replace or repair a car or household appliances, home repairs. So saving for retirement appears as the second most mentioned reason, only by 22% of the answers. And question about the main reason for not saving for retirement. 37% answered that they need to save for other short and medium-term purposes. 16% consider it too early to save for retirement. 13% consider that the amount of the pension will be enough. And in the other reasons, the most mentioned is low income. If what's here in these projections by the European Commission comes true, we Portuguese are, especially the younger than me, are in a big problem. Because when you look at the replacement rate at retirement, the public scheme now is 74%. It's going to increase a bit, then it's going to decrease, and in 2050, 25 years from now, it's going to be 43.5% only. And private occupational scheme, the replacement rate of retirement, which should increase to make up for the decrease in the public, is also decreasing, according to these projections. And this is because the defined benefit closed plans are going to disappear, and nothing is going to replace them. So 25.4% in 2019, 16% in 2070, and a bit more in the middle. So that's why raising awareness with financial literacy programs that focus on planning retirement income is my favorite. But I'm sure that my colleague Abraham tomorrow is going to give us a magical solution for all these problems.
I would just add,
Okay.
Before tomorrow, I'm not a fan of financial literacy. We'll see tomorrow. More in favor of
We can wait.
habits. but just this year, he was then 7 years old son. On his program at school, there is about awareness of financial awareness and financial literacy.
Okay.
In Portugal.
Okay. So I'm done.
Which is good. I mean,
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you, Onofre. We have time for one or two questions. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So this is
Najat?
quite a difficult situation that you have in Portugal. So if you keep the system like to say, so do you know the poverty rate at old age in Portugal? And it's also a question for the Belgium, because also with this second pillar with occupation and fully funded, we could expect, it's my question, what do you think? Could we expect an increase about the poverty rate at old
If these
age?
replacement rates become true, obviously. So if
And do
you have 50% of your income prior to retirement, so imagine.
Yeah, I mean, sure,
Yes, but of course these are very long-term projections. Sorry.
what's the situation today? It's my question about this poverty rate at old age. Because if the poverty rate at old age is now quite high, and
It's not quite high. It's under control now.
Okay.
So I can't remember the numbers, but last year or so, it was not very different, for instance, from Switzerland or from France. From France.
No, however, when it is a relative measure, it is probably, this is used, for example, by Eurostat at the risk of poverty rate.
Yes.
The benchmark, let's say, or the
Oh,
cutoff point is a median 60%. Of
Yes.
the income.
Yes. So it's under control now.
So a better measure is a severe material deprivation ratio, for example.
Yes, that is better. But I'm not aware of the numbers. But I can look for them. I'll to tell you. But yes, Eurostat has all these indicators. Any more questions?
I have a curiosity.
Yes.
So the first time that you implemented the sustainability factor
Yes.
into the public pension system, how was the reaction of the individuals? Because we can see protests in France on the television.
Yes, but in Portugal, we are different. Yes, because we are.
Revolution, nobody was killed. Portugal had a revolution with no deaths.
And it was a very strong revolution. Everything was changed. Yes, sorry. Yes, but the point is that it's logical. So if you live longer, and people are rational, so if you live longer, it's the problem of the eggs and the omelette. And Portuguese people understand this, that you cannot make omelettes without eggs. So if you live longer and you have contributed for the same period of time, something must happen. So, and of course, the cut was 0.56%, so it was not that much. And it was, but even the increase in the retirement age, so which is always increasing every year, people accept this as reasonable, because it is reasonable.
And these projections of the replacement rate in the future, they are due to the sustainability factor?
But it is, people don't ever look to these longer terms. I don't know, but I'm confident that Abraham is going to give us a solution. I don't have a solution for this. Yes, but the point is that people have to start seriously considering that they have to put some money aside to finance retirement, because there is no other way.
People or companies?
Or companies, yes, the society in general, yes. So I believe that the occupational
I think that's
plans are the solution.
an important question also for you countries in Belgium to know, do we want to develop private pensions with pure individual products or occupational pension with collective products?
Yes.
And that's, I think, an important issue for our debate.
I agree that. So, thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
so let's thank again Onofre. So with this, we put an end to this session. Tomorrow we'll come back from 9:30 with 4 more sessions. So we hope you can join us, and thank you very much for your attention.